Alright, now it's time to start assembling the Printerbot frame. So you'll need to open the wooden pieces and then you will need to find this guy. It's probably going to be attached to a few other pieces. Mine fell apart in transport a little bit. But what you are looking for is this big guy who's called the Y-top back. This Y-top back piece. The two little pieces here called L fan and R fan. This little piece with the two holes. And these three pieces here, the top, Y-top back, and Y-top front connected. You'll find attached to these is this little Y piece here, but we don't need him yet. So the way you separate pieces is using a Stanley knife, and I like to cut one side a little bit, then flip the piece over and cut the other side to finish the cut. I keep doing this until the piece falls off nice and easily. It usually takes between about 2 and 4 shots. And this will make sure you have nice clean cuts on all your pieces. So what you want to do when you finish cutting is run your finger over, and if it feels rough at all, just use a little bit of sandpaper to smooth those edges off. Now this is one piece we're not using, so we'll put it in the parts tray so we don't lose it and we can get it later. Continue cutting pieces until everything is separated, and then we will move on to the next step. Everything's gone to plan. You should have 8 nice and smooth pieces of wood to start assembling your Printerbot. So you have the main Y carriage here with the big Y in the middle, the top brace for it, which is this weird sort of U shape, Y top back, Y top front, these two pieces that will end up holding the extruder and the auto leveler, and the two little left and right fan mounts. Put these together, you're going to need 12 M3 by 16 screws and 12 matching nuts. Now, the way these guys connect is with box connectors. So you can see here the little box shaped pieces here, they clip into holes on this. Now, they're going to be quite tight to put in, so what I like to do is on the tips of every box connector is just carefully file the edges off, just a tiny bit on all 4 sides. So you're filing between about 1/2 millimeter and 1 millimeter of wood off each corner, and this means that these pieces will clip together nice and easily. So go ahead and do that across all of your pieces. And when it's done, you should be ready to knock these pieces together using the T-joints. And I haven't told you what T-joints are yet, but I will tell you as soon as these are all finished. It's time to get building. Grab your knife, carefully open the large bag of bolts and deposit them into your parts bin. Make sure the plastic bag's empty and get rid of it. You're now looking for 12 nuts, so don't take them out of the box yet, just put them in one corner. Now you're also going to need 12 of the M3 by 16 bolts. So they're about this long, but remember to use your hardware checker and make sure the threaded part is the right length. Yep, this is an M3 by 16, so I'll get him and 11 of the same length. With your bolts and nuts selected, it's always a good idea to get mat first. That way, if there's some leftovers, you know you've missed a bolt, it's time to start putting them together. Find the Allen key that matches these guys, which in my kit it's the largest silver one. In your kit it might be a different colour. And it's time to start using some T-slots. What are T-slots? Do you know? You see these pieces of wood, these weird little slots, and the shape of the slot is like this. So it kind of looks like the letter T. So this is the piece of wood here. The way the bolts work is the bolts come in through the top piece of wood here, through the hole. And the bolt comes in. I'll give it a nice big bolt head. The bolts go through into this hole. And then we put a big nut here across the bolt to secure it. So as you do the bolt up, it pulls the nut against the bottom of this T-slot here and here, and that in turn pulls the wood together. So the first two T-slots we're going to do, well, the first one actually, is using the main Y piece and the Y top back. So insert this guy from the back, not the front, and just gently wiggle it in till both sides are started, both of the box joins, and wiggle them down till they touch nice and flush. With that done, you can see our first little T-slot here. And if you get one of your M3 by 16 bolts and drop it in, you'll see it falls nicely into that little T-slot. What we have to do before we do that is we need to hold a nut in the middle of that T. So you press the nut in until it's in the middle, put your fingers on either side so it can't escape, and then just by hand put the bolt in there. It should be able to do it most of the way by hand. When you get the Allen key in, you'll never ever need to use it this way. This will give you way too much leverage, and you'll actually be able to pull that nut all the way through the wood until it breaks the printer. So always use it with the short side at the top. Turn it till it feels tight, and then give it a quarter of a turn and no more. You probably heard that noise of the bolt doing up. I'll be quiet just so you hear it again. You can hear it creaking away like that. It means it's pretty much tight enough. If you start to hear wood splintering, then stop turning the bolt, Iron Man, and relax. It's already done up. With that done, it's time to move on to the next part, which involves these two guys here. So put this aside, grab the Y top front with the text facing you, and grab this guy and put him right here on top. And grab his little friend who's also got a hole and put him right here below. So what you have is Y top front written there, and then you've got this guy with top there, and this little guy underneath with top also in the same direction. I guess you can figure out which side's the top of this block as well. Once those two are in, you've got one more T-slot to deal with. So grab a bolt and a nut, and then find this guy here, top. Drop your nut in the hole, and like we did last time, do the bolt up till it's finger tight. Get your Allen key, spin the bolt till it starts to feel tight, and then once it feels tight, quarter of a turn, and we're done. That's looking good. Now it's time to put the fan mounts onto this little guy. So flip it over onto its back, and you'll see here you've got the left and right fan mounts. And start with the right fan mount here, and the left fan mount here. I'll wiggle them in. So the left one's the one closest to the edge. The right one is the one slightly further in. Now it's important to get these around the right way because the left one on this edge has a little square hole that we're going to rely on later. The right one, who's in the middle of the block, doesn't have one. If you get these wrong, you might have to undo it later. Again, now you've got two more T-slots to do. One for the left fan mount. Once the bolt's started, you can actually wind it in with the Allen key. It's pretty easy. One for the right fan mount. This one's kind of difficult to get into, but you'll get there. Then drop the bolt in, getting started by hand. Once the bolt's doing what you want, wind it in with the Allen key, and then quarter turn past when you feel it go tight. So this guy's looking quite good. Now we're going to add him onto our y-axis. So obviously he goes on the same side as this guy. We pick Y top front there, Y here, and together we clip them on. So this might be a little difficult because there's a lot of box joints going together here. So just take your time, put the y-axis down, and slowly wiggle things in. Don't be afraid to take it out and start again if it causes trouble. Because each time you put it in, these guys will get a little easier to do. Once it's in, this should be looking quite magnificent. You'll need to use 4 T-bolts to secure this guy in. So always work over your sheet of paper, so if you ever drop a nut, it's easy to go find. This is the first guy going in. Made a nice noise when it tightened. So the second guy goes in. So again, just do it up to it feels like resistance. And then a quarter turn past that. And there's 2 hiding on the inside, which are a little more difficult to do. Sometimes the nuts need to get a couple of shots to put the nuts in. Once the nut's in, get your bolt down, start the bolt, and once it's all wound up, do your winding. Again, wind it till it feels tight. You get that nice noise of wood crackling away. Lastly, this guy here. Wind the bolt in till it's basically tight. Do this guy till it starts to feel tight. And then 1 turn past tight. So now have a look, make sure that all these joints have closed up. If you see any really big gaps, then they may not be tight enough. But if you heard that nice noise, then they should definitely all be tight enough. And the last step is to put the top on this guy. So look for the text white top back, it goes up this end, and then carefully wiggle this guy on. You might find it easier to flip it all over and wiggle the base onto the top, but I'm sure you're smart enough to figure out which way this all goes. Mine's a little too tight, so I'm going to have to take it off and re-sand all those posts. Someone is not being as nice as they should. This last hole is actually, the wood is pushing up into the hole, which isn't ideal. So we'll just have to clear that hole out using. If you look closely, you'll be able to see it's just a bit of overlap pushing into that hole. A bit of leftover wood from the cutting process. Cleared him out and we should be good to go. You might have to use a small hammer to tap them. But if you do that, you need to make sure they're already started before you do this. And very lightly tap. You don't want to break these, and you need to make sure they're absolutely all going together. So if they're not all going together, you're going to end up with some broken pieces of wood. Once the pieces are in, then you'll have your last 4 bolts and your last 4 nuts put in. There you have it, one completed Y carriage.